Evening, folks. Welcome to the Wednesday, June 5th edition of i12 GIA Real Talk with Real People. We have some kind of interesting topics tonight. We're going to be covering is Christianity under attack and has Europe fallen? I'm pretty sure we're going to get a lot of opinions. And we have myself and my partner Rennie and my other partner Nomad has graced us with his presence this evening. So hopefully we're going to jump right into this. And we got some videos queued up for you, a lot of good information. Oh. And yeah, okay. Being the trained professionals that we are, Rennie, are you okay, buddy?
I got a hole in my lip.
That's okay. All right. I think there was a bit of a delay there, so I'm going to start my intro again. Not an issue. Okay, welcome to Wednesday, June 5th edition of i12 GIA, Real Talk with Real People. Tonight's topic is Christianity under attack and has Europe fallen? Be it myself, my partner Rennie, my other partner Nomad, who will be on the phone because he's out doing Nomad stuff tonight. But we should have a lot of good topics, a lot of good information. We got some videos queued up for you. Give us a call at 508-974-4231 because we'd love to talk to you. So let's get fired up here. Rennie, you want to lead us off?
Yeah. Welcome, everybody. Tonight's going to be a good show, good topics. These are challenging times that we're in these days. On the whole, society is becoming more, in my opinion, anti-Christian. We're seeing steady increases in homosexuality, support for abortion on demand. The Democrats are big into that. Unwillingness to obey authorities, unwillingness to work, marriage being abandoned, clothing being abandoned, an increase in pornography, an increase in lawlessness, to name a few areas. But Christians are fighting for their freedom, even in so-called Christian nations like the United States.
All right, you are completely correct. Nomad, you want to jump in on this real quick? Is Christianity under attack?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, okay, we can all go home now. We're done.
Okay.
We have a resounding yes.
All right. Well, here's the thing. We're going to discuss this, I know, but we're going to also have people with conflicting views, which thankfully for our First Amendment, we can be gentlemanly about that and be all things constitutional. However, there are some distinct differences that people need to be aware of from the European perspective, from the non-US perspective, and from other countries who have a secular form of Islam and how it is or not compatible with democracy. So I'm sure we'll get to those points a little bit later on. Any callers with any opinions, please call in. This is really, really important.
Yep, 508-974-4231. So let's run up the first video and see what we got.
A mob of angry people attacking a church, striking police, and destroying a statue of the Virgin Mary. This video was taken as a group descended on a Catholic church in Narayanpur, India, just one example of a growing wave of violence targeting India's religious minorities. Our observer headed up a fact-finding report about violence against the region's Christian community in December.
There is a Catholic church in Narayanpur which was attacked by a mob. They all had sticks in their hand. They are seen marching towards the church and attacking all the window panes and window glasses. They are inspired by Hindu nationalist ideology. BJP is Bharatiya Janata Party, a right-wing Hindu nationalist party which is in power. That party's leader was also there in the mob.
The church attack was not an isolated incident. It came after more than 1,000 Christians in 40 villages around Narayanpur were forced to flee their homes during the month of December.
They were given three options. First option was convert. The second option was leave the village. And the third option was face the violence.
Christians make up 2.4% of India's population as of the last census done in 2011. Our observer explained that this current wave of violence began because the Christian community was accused of converting some local Hindus.
Every year there are more than 300 incidents reported from various parts of the country. Prayer meetings are attacked, pastors are attacked. These attacks have increased after BJP, the Hindu Nationalist Party, came to power in 2014. And they are increasing more and more. The Hindu Nationalist Party leaders are alleging that large number of conversions are taking place without any data, without any survey, without any study. The government is responding by bringing in anti-conversion laws, ironically called as Freedom of Religion Acts.
Since 2018, at least 10 BJP-led states have enacted bills that make religious conversions illegal. But critics say they contradict India's constitution and unfairly target minority religious groups.
Okay, that deals specifically with India, where Christians are the minority, as opposed to the United States, where Christians here are the majority. So what do you guys think about that?
What, India?
Well, how it compares between India, where they're the minority, Christians are the minority, as opposed to here, where they're a majority of Christians.
You know, I get mixed feelings. Years ago, our society was based on Christian absolutes. People knew what was right and what was wrong. Behaviors such as sexual deviancy, easy divorce, public lewdness, abortion on demand, pornography, public nudity were considered to be really, really wrong. And on Saturday nights or Sunday mornings, you went to confession. Varying punishments for offenders were meted out by society. Value judgments were basically built on biblical principles. For example, the 10th commandment. Most people accepted and respected a belief in God. And as soon as the Democrats took God or Jesus Christ out of the schools, the world went to hell in a handbasket. And it's still plummeting at record speeds.
Yep. Okay, Nomad, what's up, buddy?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. That case in reference to India. I lived in India for a little bit, not by choice, more by deployment. But I lived in a place called Daman on the west coast of India, and it's a former Portuguese colony. And so Vasco da Gama was there in the 1500s. He brought Christianity with him. On every sailing vessel in the 15th, 14th, 15th, 16th centuries, there was a monk or a priest or someone going with the guys on board. They lived in that area particularly. There was a combination of Hinduism, Islamic, and a minority Christian, probably less than 5%. There was no real issues as long as everybody got treated fairly by the local constabulary. Once the police decided something was going on, then you could see the Christians getting the bad end of the stick. India is a different dynamic. And when people respectfully think of Christianity, the first nemesis that they think of is Islam, which is not always the case and isn't really fair to Islam in some respects, but it hasn't done a very good job of giving itself some good PR. But what I would say is that depending upon the station you're at or the locale you're operating in, yes, Islam has a different set of principles than if you're talking about just Christianity. Other faiths, equally the same. Even within Islam, there are opposing differences. The Baha'i, who are a breakaway form of Islam, formed in the 1800s, they have basically got a living death sentence on some of them because depending on which particular flavor of Islam have an issue with them. So there's almost a kill on sight with some of the fanatical end of it. But every religion has fanatics. So it's not just Islam, and I'm not Islamic, but every side has a fanatic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. Even within Christianity, because you have Mormons, you have Baptists, you have Southern Baptists, you have Protestants, you have evangelicals, so forth and so on. Renee, go ahead, buddy.
Nomad, quick question. How is India a different dynamic?
India is number one. It's a billion of the guys there, right? There's no room. The India has been the intersection of so many civilizations from east to west. Has a very ancient multicultural aspect to it. In fact, um, there's a lot of connections between Christianity and some of the Buddhist type beliefs that would have been there, and there is evidence and there's a train of thought within some versions and some different flavors of Christianity. Where did Jesus go from the age of 12 to 30 years of age? And there's an interesting argument with that. And this brings in what you're talking about. A carpenter in biblical times was equivalent to a mechanic. He wasn't just a guy who made furniture, because you need someone to repair a chariot or a cart or a truck. So if you can make a table, you can make a wheel. So therefore, the chances are you went on the old trade routes from the Mid East over to India, into China and back. And there's some evidence from some of the Christian churches that are Orthodox to say that Jesus, who's known as Isa in India, was there for a number of years and was influenced allegedly by some of the teachings. But this is all speculative. It's not substantiated by anything. But religions tend to follow shipping and trade routes. Old sea routes, people traded goods, beliefs, women, weapons, gossip, and everything else. So you had a seaport, you had a combination or a synergy of different religions in.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, I think we can run the next video up next. Please.
And as Pakistan opens its doors for the Sikh pilgrims from India, back home it is unable to protect its Christian minorities. Let me start with this report. It's from last month. This is when Pakistan's mission at the United Nations received hundreds of letters seeking concrete steps to protect the Christian community in Pakistan. You see, these letters highlighted the systematic persecution of the Christians in Pakistan, the unjust punishments that they are subjected to, citing blasphemy, the forced marriages of young Christian girls to older Muslim men, the usurping of land and belongings of Christians, and the forced conversions in various parts of Pakistan. Let's just have a look at some recent developments first. In February this year, 2 Christian farmers were killed in Pakistan. One of them was beaten to death by his Muslim landowner. In January, a guava farmer was gunned down. Why? For resisting the stealing of fruits from his orchard. And he too was a Christian. He was killed by 3 Muslim youths. In fact, reports say the accused are still walking free. And if you think that is bad, then have a look at this report. A few weeks back, a 15-year-old Christian girl was kidnapped. She was abducted by a 60-year-old Muslim who later forcibly married her and converted her to Islam. The girl's family saying that they went to the police, but the cops refused to accept the complaint. And it doesn't even end there. Last year, a Christian priest was shot dead in Peshawar. What exactly was his crime? No one knows. The Peshawar police has linked the attack to terrorist elements. You see, even schools run by Christians are under attack in Pakistan. Last year, a school in Pakistan's Sheikhupura city was ransacked by a group of goons. Reports say at least 14 armed men raided the school, tortured the staff, and damaged their vehicles. Why? Because this school was providing free education to Christian students. Now, these were just a few instances. There are many more stories of horror, many more accounts of atrocities. But you get the point here. The life of Pakistan's Christians has become a living hell. Let's talk about the numbers now. They tell you the story as well. In 1998, Christians made up 1.59% of Pakistan's population. In 2021, the figure had dropped to just 1.27%. If I speak of literacy, only 35% of Christians in Pakistan are literate. According to an Islamabad-based NGO, and as per media reports, over 80% of Christian family units of 6 to 8 people live in 2-room houses. And let's not even talk about the kind of jobs that they do. To this day, every cantonment city in Pakistan has an area known as Lal Kurti. This is where Christians reside and do odd jobs at the households of generals. Jobs like laborers, cleaners, farmhands. According to one report, in fact, 80% of sanitary positions in Pakistan are held by Christians. 80%. Have a look at this report now. It's from December 2021. Let me quote what this Pakistani newspaper said about Christian workers. The Christian cleaners have kept the sewer system moving in Karachi's enormous part metropolis by unclogging decaying drain pipes of feces and dangerous hospital waste. And you see, doing menial jobs is just one part of their struggle. The other is Pakistan's blasphemy law. Under this law, anyone who offends Islam is given a death penalty. And Pakistan has now made this law stricter. It has raised the minimum prison sentence to 10 years for anyone who insults the wives, companions, family members of the Prophet Muhammad. Formerly, the maximum was 3 years, and now it is 10 years. And you'll be shocked to hear about the kind of cases that Christians are charged with under the blasphemy law. Have a look at this report. In July last year, a Christian mechanic was sentenced to death for saying that he only followed Jesus Christ. In June 2022, 2 Christian brothers were sentenced to death for allegedly posting blasphemous content on a website. Their families said they were framed, that someone created a fake website in their name. But the court hearing the case could not care less. Now, I could go on with examples regarding how the kind of treatment Christians in Pakistan are subjected to has been making headlines. But the thing is, there is frankly very little that the world can do about it. Time and again, various global bodies have urged Pakistan to treat its minorities better, to punish those who perpetuate crimes against Christians and Hindus. Yet, there has been no end to targeted attacks against them. We are now available in your country.
Let's go ahead
Download
and
the
finish
app
that one
now. Get all the
Okay, Nomad, I know you have a lot of good information about that particular part of the country, or the world.
Well, thank you, Philip. The Christians in Pakistan, they came about from when the British Raj was in the 19th century during the British Empire, during Victoria's time. They converted, so they went from being the lowest caste of Hindu to Christians. So they were at that time, around less than 1% of the population. Now they're up between 3 and 4%, from what I know of. And there's 5 different elements of the Hindu caste system. There's the Brahmins, which is the priests. There's the Kshatriyas, which is the warriors. There's the Vishyas, who are farmers. There's the Shudras, who are laborers. And the Dalits are the outcasts. That's the Christians. They're street sweepers. They clean toilets. They do the really menial jobs that are actually there. So the Christians in Pakistan particularly came from that Hindu caste system. So they were already being penalized by the Hindu system. And once Islam got into it with the blasphemy charges, they had no way out of it. So they're really in a no-win situation from that point of view.
Okay. Jeff B makes a really good point. He said it's not our American country, one in Rome. In other words, it's Pakistan, India, both. It's their country. So, and they are the Christian minority. So, what do you guys think about that, Ronnie?
Well, about you mean other countries?
Yeah, I mean, what we so far what we're discussing is Pakistan and India, and yeah, Christians are pretty much shit all over in both of those countries because they're in the minority.
Well, you're going to find this hard to believe. I know you are. But I was a year shy of getting my theological degree. I went to Bible school.
Why am I not surprised?
I lasted 2 years until I realized that it wasn't for me. But
Okay.
most theological universities and Bible colleges don't take what we call a dogmatic stand on Genesis. We just tolerate it. And what you got to do, I think, is we have to allow other views, and we need to be tolerant of others' opinions in addition to ours
As Christians,
as Christians. Yeah,
yeah, isn't that kind of like,
including like Pakistan and India.
Okay, Nomad. Hey, Nomad, what do you think?
Oh yeah, gotcha. Oh, welcome back. Okay, the situation with India and Pakistan, they're quite. They're both the same neighborhood. You've got Kashmir, got all this stuff going on. Here's where I'm coming from. Former where stuff is at. The legacy of the British Empire is one element of it. The Ottoman Empire in Europe. You're looking at the Crusades, which everybody will go to at some stage in relation to Islam. But you're looking at most of the religions of the have a lot more in common than they have apart. I'm not a theological scholar, but I've been on the receiving end of theology on both ends of it. But what I'm saying is people who generally discuss religion, what they'll tell you is this. I had a guy in Saudi Arabia telling me, he said, religion is man-made but God-given. He said, and so it depends upon which interpretation or whichever point you have. You can travel the world from a cookbook by putting your finger in a different dish and tasting it. You should equally be open to all things. When whichever figure, whichever religious icon you follow, there's an inclusivity in relation to that. When you mix military power, dominance, politics, and then fanaticism mixed in together, you have the man-made element of it, which can misinterpret a lot of stuff. And Islam itself is a very good example of how it can be misconstrued. And a lot of the ignorance of people of Islam and a lot of people who are Islamic, ignorance of Christianity, they both recognize each other as central figures in the Bible and in the Quran. So there's a whole lot of it from the Abrahamic religions. There's more in common than the other. So that's what we should be doing with our school.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and run up the next video. Let's see where we're at here. Yeah, okay. Well, all right. That's okay. We got a break coming up in 3 minutes. So let's just go ahead and keep talking, and then we'll work on the videos after that. I want to get back to what we do in here in America, where Christians are the majority here, is so much different than what happens in the rest of the world. And it seems like a lot of the problem with folks in general is that, there's so many people that don't travel more than 10 blocks away or a mile away from their homes, much less get out and see what's going on in the rest of the world. I watched kind of an interesting video today about where a gay guy was interviewing a couple of college students who were supporting Palestine. And he asked them, he said, well, do you support, how do you think Palestine, cares? Do they care about gays or not? And they said, well, they really didn't know. So he said, well, as a gay man, I'd be killed. If I were in Palestine, I'd be arrested and murdered. So those young ladies that had absolutely no idea what he was talking about, but they finally got sorted out. And as Nomad just said, U.S. constitutional law and Sharia laws are not compatible. That's another issue here. in America specifically. We have
Neither is the Quran and the Bible.
exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. So, and within our government, you have we have it's not freedom. We have freedom of religion, not freedom from religion, which has always been a big issue for me. It's everything within our government. We have in God we trust, and all those little things going on in there. So what happens with that? And is that a caller?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Get
Hey,
ready to
caller.
answer.
Okay, got it. Hey, caller, you're on the air with I12 GIA. What can we do for you? Hey, caller, how are you, buddy?
Hey, how's it going? My name's not bad. How are you?
Good, thanks. What can we do for you?
My name's Will. I've been listening in. You guys doing a good show as usual. I just got a couple of quick pointers, or quick points, I guess. I spent most of my life as a pretty rabid atheist, and I used most of the same excuses that most people use to excuse my atheism. All religions are kind of the same. They all kind of lead to the same place, and yada yada. And I lied and said I read the Bible when I hadn't. I did all those things. I had all the Hitchens, Shermer, Dawkins talking points in a cylinder, and I would just vomit them up whenever I felt it appropriate. And the truth is, there's either truth or there's not truth, right? People say there's no absolute truth, and my reply to that is that true. I think it's a self-defeating statement. There is one truth. That's it. There's no my truth, your truth. There's only one truth, and it's on all of us to figure out what that truth is to the best of our abilities. Now, we're the only people, as in Christians, who are going around saying things like, well, we should treat everyone with respect and we should accept their views. Mm-hmm. Believe me, I've been all over the Middle East. They're not saying that. Mm-hmm. Not at all. Mm-hmm. But where our acquiescence invites aggression, it really does. We're looked at as wishy-washy and mealy-mouthed and not really having any actual faith. And I think largely that's true. I think most Christians in this country are Christmas-chins. They go on Christmas and Easter. They've never read their Bible. They don't know what they're talking about for the most part. And they just self-identify as Christians. And that's really all it is. And that's a tree without roots. And a tree without roots is easily knocked over by the slightest breeze. That's just where we are. People point back at the Crusades. Oh, the Crusades was awful. They leave out that, in 1099, when the Crusades were first launched, there was after 400 years of Muslim aggression bursting out of the, all the way up into the Iberian Peninsula and slave raiding as far north as Ireland before Europeans finally said they had enough.
Yep.
We're either going to disappear as a people, as a faith group, or we're going to fight back and start being hard-nosed again like we used to.
Yeah.
And that's really the only two options.
It's like the Old Testament hard-nosed, yeah.
Hey, Will, all excellent points, brother.
Yep.
Oh, Thank you very much, guys. All right, well, I'm going to get going, but keep going, guys. I'll keep listening.
Thanks, Will. Very succinct explanation. Thanks for calling, buddy.
Have a good night, guys.
You too. Okay, guys, what do you think? We about it for a break next? Get that out of the way?
Yeah, might as well. We're going to stay. Are we switching topics or are we staying with this?
I'll see what's up for the next video. I'll have to check to make sure.
All right.
But I'll figure it out while we're on break. Assuming.
My name is Steven, your public relations officer at FFN Media Network. We believe that every story deserves to be heard. Every voice deserves to be amplified, and every idea deserves to shine. As a small media company, we are committed to creating a platform where content creators, visionaries, and changemakers like you can thrive. You might say to yourself, why do we need FFN Network? Well, let me tell you what we can do for you. 1. Our mission is simple: empower, elevate, and engage. We are not just another media outlet. 2. Our producers will help you build your show, add content, and put you on 15 different platforms. 3. We help you promote your show. Whether it is through captivating articles, thought-provoking videos, or inspiring podcasts, we are here to help you make a difference. What sets us apart? At FFN Media Network, we embrace hard work. Our team of talented producers and creators come from all social classes, ensuring that our content reflects a rich tapestry of experiences, cultures, and viewpoints. Join the FFN team. Join FFN Media Network and be part of a community that celebrates creativity, authenticity, and positive impact. Let us amplify your voice and share your story on FFN Network and with the world. Get to know our founder, Blaise St. Pierre, the new guy in the media industry. So if you have a great idea for a show or a business and want to place an ad on FFN Network? Give us a call at 774-704-5145 or email us at ffnnetwork9@gmail.com and join the FFN Network family. Thank you. FFN Network.
Okay, folks, we are back. We've got about 3 more videos, and then we're going to head on over to Has Europe Fallen? The next three videos are pretty important to our topic. So this one may or may not piss some people off. So let's go ahead and run the one that's up next.
A surprising report from Israel today where officials are taking seriously a recent upsurge in spitting and hitting attacks on clergy and the vandalism of Christian sites.
Christians in Jerusalem's Old City say they've been repeatedly assaulted. So how are Christian leaders responding? CBN's Julie Stahl brings us the story from Jerusalem.
The situation led Israeli President Isaac Herzog and Police Commissioner Yaakov Shabtai to meet leaders of the Orthodox and Catholic churches of the Holy Land.
In recent months, we've seen very serious phenomena towards the Christian denominations in the Holy Land. Our brothers and sisters, Christian citizens, feel attacked in their places of prayer, in their cemeteries, and on the streets.
Christians in Jerusalem's Old City say they are often harassed, spit on, and even physically attacked by religious Jewish youth.
I view this phenomenon as extreme and unacceptable in any shape or form. This phenomenon needs to be uprooted.
Earlier incidents include the desecration of a Protestant cemetery on Mount Zion, an attack on international Christians during a day of prayer for Jerusalem, and harassment at a Messianic concert in Jerusalem.
We must respect the members of all religions. We've committed to this since the dawn of our existence. This is the most basic commandment of love your neighbor as yourself.
Church leaders expressed their desire to work together with Israeli authorities.
We need to work together in order to encourage coexistence and solidarity between us, and the love between us, because we are brothers in the same state. We live in the same places, and we need to live together in quiet and peace.
Recently, Israeli Channel 13 reporter Yossi Eli went undercover as a priest for a day. Dressed in a robe, he walked through the Old City with Franciscan Father Alberto. In the first 5 minutes, he was spat at 5 times by Orthodox Jewish Israelis. In Haifa, Israel's police commissioner said the police are working to eradicate incidents and trends that affect the sense of security.
We're here to reassure you of that and to offer any assistance that may be required. As part of the cooperation between all the parties, we're working to bridge the gaps in places of conflict while simultaneously striving to provide the vital sense of security.
David Parsons from the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem says the attacks are coming from a fringe element.
Most Israelis welcome Christians here. They welcome Christian support. But there does seem to be a fringe, a small fringe on the religious right that for whatever motivations are trying to harass and give trouble for Christians here.
He also says it's a learning curve for Israel right now.
Jewish people wouldn't tolerate these sorts of attacks against them. In other countries, they're very vocal about it, and they shouldn't tolerate it here when their own co-religionists carry out similar attacks against Christians.
Parsons told CBN News the scriptures are clear about how Christians should treat the Jewish people.
Scriptures are clear that Genesis 12:3 says we need to bless the Jewish people. Isaiah says comfort them. Paul in Romans 11 says show them mercy. So we have biblical commands to stand with Israel, support them. We're not going to condition that support on whether or not these attacks are stopping, but it does make it harder for us to build support and friendship for Israel out there.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
So what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Have we answered the question that Christianity is under attack worldwide?
Is Christianity? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Nomad?
Well, I think there's a couple of different things that people need to realize about Christianity in Israel. The Christians who live in Israel, not the Christians who visit Israel, but the Christians who live in Israel are primarily Arab Christians. So they are primarily most. Jesus was Druze, so Lebanese, that area, right? So most of them are ethnically most Christians in living in Israel are Arab Christians. So they right now, obviously, with what's going on after October 7, anything that looks non-Israeli, which isn't even true, is also getting attacked on this. But let me move on. From a political point of view, the Arab Christians agree with Muslims that they say Israel cannot be a democracy and a Jewish state at the same time. And there's a difference, and we don't understand that. We don't live there, so we don't get it. But you can't have that argument is then basically countered with how can you have Sharia law in a democracy? So you have that debate going on amongst Christians and Arab Christians and Israelis. Christianity is the third religion of Israel behind Judaism and Muslims. So there's another side to it. And then again, the religious nature, the last caller made a very good point. Religiously, Muslims pray more than Christians. And in Israel, Israeli Christians tend to be less religious than the Muslims themselves. So they're caught between a rock and a hard place. They've changed from being followers of the Prophet to becoming Christian. And then the Jews say, well, here's the thing, you ought to represent two parts of society that we don't really have time for. Remember, Jesus was crucified by the Roman Empire with Judaism, with the high priests giving the political side of it. So it's not really about religion in that end of it. And then the last thing is Israeli Christians, they have very few connections socially or family wise with the Arabs and other religious groups. Most of they tend to stay amongst themselves. They don't interact very well with other religions. So the Christians who visit Israel are tourists first and Christians second. Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, next topic then is going to be the fall of Europe. So let's head on over there and see what's going on.
Sweden was recognized worldwide as a very wealthy, developed country with an excellent quality of life and, above all, a very peaceful country. It was even among the 10 safest countries in the world. However, in recent years, Sweden has had one of the highest rates of gun deaths in all of Europe. In addition, hospital waiting times are among the worst in Europe and the quality of education has declined across the board. But without a doubt, what worries Swedes most is the issue of crime and violence. In fact, last September, the situation reached the point that Sweden is preparing to deploy its armed forces to deal with the wave of violence across the country. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson said, "Sweden has never seen anything like this before. No other country in Europe is seeing anything like this." The whole situation is driven by gang turf wars, personal vendettas, and a large pool of available youth. Most of them from immigrant communities arriving from other countries in Africa and the Middle East, such as Syria, Iraq, Iran, and Somalia. In fact, the leader of one of the largest gangs is Rala Majid, who arrived in Sweden as a newborn in 1986 after his parents fled Iraq. So the questions are, why is the idea of multiculturalism destroying Sweden, and why in other rich countries is immigration successful, but in Sweden it failed? Before World War II, Sweden was a linguistically and culturally homogeneous country. From 1871 to 1940, the average number of immigrants was only 6,000 per year, and most of them came from Germany, Denmark, and Norway. However, in recent decades, the idea of multiculturalism entered the political mainstream in Sweden, and it began to receive a large number of refugees from outside Europe, making it one of the countries that received the most non-European immigrants in relation to its population. The proportion of immigrants of non-European origin increased from 2% to 15% from 1985 to 2015. Due to this rapid immigration, Sweden had a population growth of more than 1% per year between 2015 and 2019, well above normal levels for industrialized countries. This, at first glance, seems a very positive.
Yeah, Nomad, go ahead, buddy.
Right, I'm back. The actual the European example is a different ball game to what here. What I would say and preface it with this is what's happening in Europe right now is a lesson for us here. The Europe that I left, has arrived here. And it is something that is, on a daily basis, that is something that is always going to be challenging. The immigration in Europe is different to the immigration that we have here on our southern border. It is not the same type of immigration. But what I would say to you is that the actual immigration itself has led to a passive caliphate with Islam. And what I mean by that, caliphate means that ultimately, a follower of the Prophet will tell you the ideal scenario would be everybody's Muslim, everybody believes in the one, and that's it. Europe being Judeo-Christian based is directly at loggerheads with that. Historical experiences, last caller mentioned the Crusades, not just that, but economically as well. You're talking about some other things. But the European immigration, I'll wait a while until we get into it more in the weeds. But the immigration is the key to the spread of Islam and the potential usurping of some of the beliefs and principles that Europe was once founded upon.
Okay, Rennie?
So two things. I want to. My son Chris brought out two good points, so I want to thank him for his contribution. I meant to do that earlier. Nomad, I get one for you there, brother.
Okay, buddy.
Why do people think that even without NATO, that Russia can take on the European Union?
That's a great question. European Union is fragmented. What is now the European Union is now the United States of Europe. And while it is in principle having a centralized form of government, it actually has so much historical baggage amongst some individual members that it's not possible to actually fully have a cohesive response to Russia. Russia has a better understanding of how Europeans think than Europeans give them credit for. The example I give you is the Balkans in the 90s. Nobody would have thought that once Yugoslavia split up into 7 or 9 countries, that you'd have such an accelerated response passively from the Russian Empire. It's right on its doorstep. And countries like Serbia, Montenegro, Croatia, Bosnia, some elements in every country that's in the Balkans, in southeastern Europe, has some historical or cultural or religious legacy to Europe. The Orthodox churches in Europe are all connected. The Serbian Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church, they're first cousins to each other. The Greeks slightly different. So what I'm saying is that the Russians have utilized, since 1917 with the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks, they have utilized religion as a way of being a conduit to some foreign policy. That's just one opinion.
Okay, excellent.
I got a second part to that question. Have you ever heard of a guy named Duggan?
I knew a few Duggans. He owes me $10.
Well, he's an ultranationalist and an extreme supporter of Putin, and he wrote a book in 1997 where he said that anybody didn't agree with Putin was mentally ill or insane. Putin is absolute. Thoughts on that?
Putin is primarily trying to rekindle the old empire. Again, going back to 1917, the lessons that the Russians learned. I put it in a point. America has saved Europe's ass many times, and Europeans have forgotten it. Okay,
and we're celebrating an 80-year anniversary tomorrow. So.
Absolutely, and this is why I'm saying that, right? I know one poor gentleman that was there. He's there now. It's probably his last trip. He'll be there, and he's a hero to me in every sense of the word. But going back to my point, America and the Allies rebuilt Europe, right, through the Marshall Plan. They never rebuilt Russia. So the Russians have a chip on their shoulder from that as well. Okay? When Berlin was divided and we had Checkpoint Charlie, look at the difference between East Germany and West Germany. That was an absolute staggering visual of how different standards of living are there. But Putin is primarily, he wants to be an emperor. He's not a Napoleon in every sense of the word. And he's trying to rekindle and trying to, he's from a generation that was ex-KGB, elected to the Politburo, has a lot of the old world, and he's basically, he is like granite. He is impervious to change. Once he decides, he decides. He's an absolute dictator. He's on his, fourth term or fifth term now? Other than African tin pot countries, you have somebody in power that long. I would agree. That is a good synopsis of the character of Putin.
Okay. Yep, without a doubt. All right, let's move on to France next and see what's going on over there. By the way, give us a call, 508. Gonna wait for the number to come back up so I can tell you what it is. 508-974-4231. Give us a call. We'd love to talk to you. And let's go see what's happening in France. Okay. Maybe we're not going to France next. So let's just bring the next one up then. Oh, okay. We're going to Germany next. Sorry, folks. Trust us, we're from the government, not. And we are all highly trained professionals. So let's go on over to Germany. Hopefully.
Anti-immigration parties across Europe and authorities trying to neuter right-wing parties such as the AFD. I mean, Justin, it's interesting that they blurred the face of this attacker, the man stabbing people, but they didn't blur, they almost deliberately doxed young people singing Ausländer Raus, a song that's been seen as xenophobic and racist or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's led to them being those people singing the song being fired from their jobs and
I guess it's carrying on from the Trump thing. I mean, singing that song. I know that Germany has specific laws because of their history about singing. So you can't sing Deutschland über alles and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's correct either, but I think the general public's a very dangerous game you play when you start gaslighting people and you start going, oh, this attack happened, and they don't tell you about it, and they sort of like switch and they look around and go, well, who had done the attack? And they go, oh, we don't know. You do know.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the truth, there's three sides to the story. There's to be like once the right side, the left side, and then there's the truth. The truth should always win out. People are going to get sick of it because people aren't stupid.
Yeah.
And it's not racist to say what happened, what actually happened, because the way it's reported is like they're completely massaging the facts and presenting one side of the beast and not the other side.
Yeah, I mean, Precious, it feels like that. It feels like they're, whenever an attack like this happens, they're very quick to rush out and condemn anybody who's concerned about the attack.
I think it is. I think it's very sad to see that they're not actually, discussing the real issue here. This person harmed another being, and we need to be concerned as to why. A person,
I can tell you.
Well, we know. Well, this is why it needs to be said.
There's a bit of a pattern.
I mean, he's an extremist, and he's obviously has something against these people, and he's come against them and he's attacked them, and we need to be concerned of what this is showing the world, because it's happening in the UK, it's happening in France, it's happening in Italy, it's happening worldwide. I mean, in colleges around the world, universities, campuses. This has to stop.
Yeah.
The extremism it has to stop. There is also a lot of people that are getting involved that have no idea what is going on in Israel and have no idea.
Anything to do with Israel?
Well, obviously we're going about the activists and all the things that are going on right now, but it's an extremism and we need to get a handle on it because it is kind of getting out of control.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's been out of control for a while, but anybody who notices or questions it gets accused of being racist.
Even if you ask, like, evenly and just go, what did happen? It's like, it's crazy because, like, on the other side, people go, oh, you can be described as things like far right adjacent, which doesn't even mean anything. But the other way, it's just, oh, no, nothing to see here.
Yeah.
It's insane. It really is. It's like insanity.
But I wouldn't be worried about it because Precious has asked it to stop.
No. Well, we need this to stop. I mean, this is back. Well, there we go. I mean, the authorities got confused when they got there and didn't know who was who. So, yeah,
They knew. I think is that a diversity training thing? Like racial profiling is bad at an airport and stuff. But if there's an anti-Islam extreme rally going on, and someone's getting stabbed and it comes over your walkie-talkie, you should probably tackle the person that looks like a Muslim, not the. That's
right.
The thing.
I mean, that's what I thought that was happening, and then obviously we had a discussion. I mean, the person obviously wasn't.
But my concern is that the left-wing establishment is actually sort of tacitly approving of attacks on right-wing politicians because they know. I mean, it's like in Iran, before the fall of the Shah, the leftists allied and marched with the Islamists to help overthrow the Shah and get the Islamists into power.
Well,
any promises that were made, obviously, fell apart and. Iran hasn't become a left-wing paradise.
Well, because that's one of the first earliest battles of this. It's not just it's a very complicated issue.
It's very complicated.
But basically, it's a left versus right, Team World versus Team Britain, and up from some other place comes this other question. I don't think they should automatically attack a Muslim.
No, I meant in that situation.
No.
Basically, right, okay, what I meant was they got called to a situation. Attack the guy with the machete. That's the thing. It is a complicated.
Yeah, that's Germany's in a lot of trouble, without a doubt. Now, knife attacks are on the rise there for a lot of different reasons. Nomad, you want to go ahead and weigh in there?
Yeah, a couple of different things on knife attacks. Number one, the self-defense laws in Europe. European citizens have very little access to firearms other than for sporting purposes. So they really don't carry anything. Might carry pepper spray, might carry a telescopic baton, an asp or whatever you have. But ultimately, no. Most kids in Europe carry knives to school because if something goes wrong, they're going to do it. So less school shootings in Europe is because there's less guns available to people, right? And that's a whole different argument. That's not saying I'm pro-Second Amendment, but I'm anti-stupid, okay? But let's move on from that. Other thing is the masculinity end of it, of Islam. People say, what the hell is he talking about? What he's talking about is this. If you're a young Arab kid and you're a male kid, you are surrounded by certain tenets and certain types of attitudes and behavior, which are intrinsically part of showing how powerful you are. And so when someone has a disagreement, the social skills sometimes in some of these countries that are not very well developed can lead to abject violence. But what I'm really saying is in relation to knife attacks in particular, Europe has open borders like our states have here within the US. So unless you come to the attention of law enforcement, you really don't come to the attention of law enforcement. And so with the immigration side of it, immigration officers stopping immigrants coming into Europe don't stop guys carrying knives from Arab countries because that's what they do. It's like the equivalent of a pocket knife to a guy in the 40s and 50s here in America.
That's an interesting thought. Rennie? Hey, Rennie, want to jump in on that? Are you there? Did he freeze?
I think he's frozen, yeah.
I think he's frozen. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, but the...
okay, well...
He's back on. Go ahead, Fog.
Yeah, it looks like we might have lost him there. Okay, well, let's go ahead and finish this up then, buddy. I think you had you win the cigar for the most cogent point of the entire evening. And yeah, without a doubt. And bells and whistles and all that fun stuff. And that comment was, what's happening in Europe right now is coming here. And if we don't get our shit together, it's going to fall right on top of our heads, if it hasn't already.
Yeah.
You would agree with that?
Yeah, yes, I would. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine just finished up doing 15 years in the French Foreign Legion. And I was in contact with him recently. When he went in, there was 11 regiments. It's down to 7 or 9, I can't remember. He said about 5% of the population that he was working with and operating with would have been from Islamic countries. When he left a few months ago, it was nearly 20%. and he said there have been instances which the French are very good at keeping a lid on, that when during the Afghan deployments, some of those guys had a crisis of conscience going to Afghanistan because they were going to be up against the Taliban, who were Islamic. But that's not a good example, really. But what I'm saying is Germany is the top place in Europe for Islamic immigrants to go, and there's a whole different breakdown, and the Europe is starting to swing ultra right now. And what's happening is, you see it. You're going to see, I mean, that guy in the UK, Nigel Farage, they're all going to start swinging towards ultra right wing, which is going to have an impact on stuff here. Because guess who's ever elected in Europe will be negotiating on behalf of NATO with the US. And people may realize that. There's an old saying in Europe: when America sneezes, Europe gets a cold. It's now reversed. It's now reversed, because now we got the ice cream guy in the office, and nobody's paying any attention. But anywhere, if you look at the elections in Europe right now, the populist right wing parties, Geert Wilders, Nigel Farage, Matteo Salvini, they all took the example of when Trump was in on his first term, and he said it's time for NATO to pay up. Basically, he said, they're right. We need to be self-sufficient. So now there's a new force in Europe called EUFOR, European Force. So it will supplement and eventually replace NATO. So it'll be self-funded, but the politics of the moment will probably be embedded with that. And the last point, I'll let you go. I know you kill me on time. The newer countries that have just been allowed into NATO are the more robust, responsive, and diligent. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, the Finns, the Norwegians, all of a sudden, they've been waiting for years to get in. Now they're front line against Russia, because geographically they're right on that. And I tell you something, they don't tolerate anything that will upset their own individual country, their own indigenous population, or their laws. So we need to learn. We need to sit back and watch rather than we need to react. Not react, we need to respond. But Europe's lessons is coming here, and this election is going to show us how it's going to feature out. It's going to be interesting this year.
Yep, without a doubt. And on that happy note, I'm going to go ahead and close this out here. We lost Rennie. He was either abducted by aliens or sunspots or something, because he crashed and burned. So we're going to finish up with this episode of Real Talk with Real People, i12 GIA. And we have answered our 2 burning questions. Yes, Christianity is under attack worldwide. And yes, Europe has fallen. So on that happy note, keep the ones that you love close. Give them a big hug. Be prepared to self-rescue. And good night, folks. Go ahead and close us up, Nomad.
All right, folks. We need to learn. As a brand new American, relatively new anyway, right? I haven't passed my sell-by date yet. I tell you this right now. Having worn a uniform over there and I'm wearing one over here right now, I can tell you the lessons that our sin is going to be ignoring what's happening. Just thinking because it's over there, thinking it's not actually here. I'm telling you right now, a Trojan horse already, or the U.S. concept, the American concept, the concept of America is fragile right now if we don't get ourselves squared away.
Okay, folks, and we will see you next Wednesday with another scintillating episode of i12 GIA, Real Talk with Real People, raw, uncensored, and unfiltered. Thanks for being with us this evening. Good night.
You have just watched an FFN Network production.